What's up, guys? I'm Jeremy Hill. Today has been, I don't know, not a shit day necessarily, but perhaps just another day. And this is the first of a video series, I guess, that I've been wanting to make about myself, my business, my hobbies, interests, life, mental health, relationships, fuck, you name it. I don't know. It doesn't exactly have a direction yet. And that's sort of like my life. So right now, I'm coming to you live, well, recorded live, from Van Diesel, who is my 2006 Honda Odyssey minivan. Gets me where I need to go. And currently we are up at Radar, which is the local name known for a radar installation that was built during World War II, I believe, that is now defunct and mostly torn down. That's still got a lot of the pads that the installations were built on, a lot of the remnants. And aside from that, it's at the top of a hill because it's a radar station. So I come up here for peace, solitude, break shit, edit shit, think, not think, as the case may be. So since we're up here, let's give you a brief look at Radar during a gray, snowy, and rainy day. It's pretty rad. What's up, Van Diesel? This is not the best vantage point out here, but it's the tallest one that has the 360 degrees, and then there's a road that goes back over that way, and I'll show you some more stuff here one of these days. But today, what I'm doing is editing, trying to get caught up on shit. So I'm at a point right now. I own J Hill Images Photography. Started out as a side of Soul Photography, and that was more in keeping with, I think, my vibe at the time, what I wanted to do artistically, what I wanted to express and share with the world or friends and family. Just really the way I felt about my passion for photography. A side of soul. It's not the whole meal, because you can't get the whole meal with a picture. It's just that side. It's a la carte, right? But it gives you enough to get a taste of it. And when I was in Portland, and that was the name of my business, I didn't really pursue photography so much as a business, as much as just a passion. It was a healing experience for me. I'd gone through some tough times, single dad, kids. I've got ADD, and I think probably either, major depression at this point, or bipolar even. So new doc on the books here. We're trying to figure that shit out. So life's a journey. But at any rate, the side of soul just felt good. And I started walking around the block, taking pictures of flowers, just things that I saw, just the whole idea of looking at something through a lens, and that might be what someone else could see, was uniquely captivating for me. It wasn't the subject itself. It wasn't the light. It wasn't the location. Although those things, professionally speaking, and in terms of composition and lighting and all of that stuff, play a huge role in whether or not a photograph is considered good, or even if it's not considered good, even if you just like looking at it. But they weren't important to me. The only thing that was important to me was, what did I see, and how could I see it in a way I thought was interesting, where someone else could see that same thing from an entirely different viewpoint. And I think, to me, that was, and I've lost this a bit, but was and is the very reason that I do what I do. having ADD and having struggled with that, I guess, my entire life, but not being diagnosed until, I don't know, 36 or something like that. So about 9 years ago. I've always looked at things differently. I've always been different. I've always felt different. And I believe part of that, excuse me, is just because there's so many squirrels and so many thoughts going every different direction all of the time that no construct is ever built linearly. It's never built from a fucking recipe or, a manual or anything like that that someone else has put together. It's always just this, that, ooh, what could happen if we added this thing to this and that? How would that look? How would that feel? And so I approached photography in very much that same non-linear fashion. I didn't start out trying to become a badass or a professional photographer. Literally just like taking pictures of flowers and sharing them. And I found some photography groups on Facebook, started sharing my pictures. And as I saw people getting, joy from those or inspired by those, I was like, wow, this is really great, right? It's a way that I can do something I enjoy and share it. And at the time, it wasn't all as philosophical as I'm making it out to be now, but it was. I just didn't know it yet, I suppose. And I won't get into the whole backstory. Maybe we'll save that for another edition. But ultimately, I am now in Burns, Oregon, which, good, bad, or ugly, it's fucking where I am, right? And start where you are, because this has been a hell of a fucking 2 months. I've been in banking and finance and sales and all of this. And I say that not to brag, because intermixed with all of that was still all the struggles. Switching jobs, switching this career to that career. I was able to learn a bunch. I was able to make a bunch of money, spend a bunch of money, right? But I only say that to emphasize that, now I'm just literally, there's nothing, except for Trump flags and down home people and whatnot. And man, when I came out here 3 years ago or so, I was depressed for the better part of a year. And growing up in the suburbs and having ADD, see, I could never really just find one thing that I was happy with and could stick with. Not one hobby, not one girlfriend, right? So it was important to me to sort of be able to be a chameleon, I guess. And growing up in the suburbs, that was highly doable, right? Because I'd go out to Portland, I could dress a certain way, act a certain way. I hit the dance clubs, 3 nights a week growing up, underage, even during the week. But then I also had all my country friends that did all the country shit with their big trucks and camping and just all of that stuff. So I've been able to experience different sides of the human coin, I suppose. But I've always had access to both, or to multiple. And I lived in Utah. That was very interesting from a religious perspective, having just one solitary, I shouldn't say solitary, but, entrenched religion, prominent, that sort of swayed culture to such a degree out there that, you were expected to act and say and think and whatever certain ways. And that was a bit of culture shock. And you didn't have, I couldn't run down the street to where all the other religions were hanging out and get an entirely different culture. So in that manner, where I am now is very similar. Because, we've got some liberals, we've got environmentalists and scientists and, educated people. We've got all sorts of great people out here, actually. But I was pretty depressed because it is pretty remote. We're 3 hours to Boise, one direction, 2 hours to Bend, another direction, with a town, I guess, a county of, what are we, 7,000 people maybe. And this county is the largest county in the state of Oregon. It's larger than 9 eastern states, actually. So it gives you an idea of how sparsely populated this area is. And again, to get anywhere other than, a few gas stations, a few restaurants, high school, and, some nonprofits and blah, 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 whatever. And there are businesses out here, but to get to any place that I would consider, major civilization, you're at least 2 hours out. So it's a fishbowl. And I came out here and I was immediately depressed because I thought, already having a hard time making and keeping friends, a lot to do with my ADD and inability to maintain a certain manner to any certain group. I thought was going to be even more difficult without the ability to switch it up as I needed. And I didn't think that I would be accepted, I guess, as a liberal. I'm kind of fruity. I dance. I'm weird. I'm hairy right now, but that's all disguise. Comes off. And I always wear sunglasses. Part of that is because half the time I'm stoned, but the major part of it is that I'm just sensitive to light. I've always been super sensitive to light. So if you guys see me wearing shades all the time, it's just too fucking bright. Period. Which makes it kind of hard to shoot. So I'm always up, down, up, down. Anyways, I digress. So out here in Harney County, and there's all these people, and I'm trying to get to know them, and I'm depressed, and it's about a year, and I start shooting, and all of a sudden people see this newness, this different, right? Something different about my work and about the way that I interact with them. And they really, I think, weren't ready for it in some aspects, right? A lot of them, it was magic. I mean, I made so much magic with so many people here, and that was part of the best part of the journey. Is not that, I thought like, okay, well, these Trump people and these, rednecks and whatever, blah, 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 they're never gonna see things my way. I thought they won't accept me because they won't see things my way. The problem was I had already chosen not to accept them because I had not even really tried to understand where they were from or who they were or how they interacted with each other or dealt with their surroundings, their environment, their neighbors, their friends, their family, outsiders, right? And I was surprised. I was wrong on many levels. And my eyes were opened in a lot of ways. Now, that being said, I kind of blew up a little bit more than I expected to from, shooting bar mitzvahs and occasional weddings and portrait shoots here and there, product shoots, to family shoots all the time. Now, I shot models in studios and a lot of events, but not as many groups of people, and especially families. I'd never done a family shoot until I moved here. And I'd been shooting for, the better part of 4 years at least, 4 or 5, something like that, years. And now I'm shooting all these families. And I had to learn to not do a fucking family photo shoot, right? Like, I didn't go to Pinterest and figure out which sandwich board they should hold up that was going to be funny or whatever. I had to figure out how to get these people to trust me, being an outsider, being different, having a different process as far as my photography goes. And not only that, but what I learned was the one thing that I found is real with these photography shoots or in meeting new people or anywhere you go, is that you got to get them to trust you. And to do that, you have to be vulnerable. And you got to wear your heart on your sleeve. You got to be honest. You got to be genuine. You have to be vulnerable. And that's hard, especially as an outsider like me in an area like this. But what I learned was that it was hard, but it had so many rewards, because all of a sudden seeing these families, not standing in a line waiting for me to tell them what to do, but instead we're like jumping over hay bales. And it was okay, they trust me because I'm silly, and they can have fun, and that's okay, right? And I won't betray their goofy little secrets if they don't betray mine. Man, it was a beautiful thing. Beautiful, gorgeous. And then the senior shoots, the kids with all their interests and hobbies and quirks and mannerisms and all of their fears, right? He'd be the best looking kid in the world, right? With all the cool stuff and all the cool friends, but they're all still insecure to some degree, and they all just still want to be represented no matter how good you make them look. Because let's be honest, there's a bazillion photographers that can make someone look good. Like, who cares, right? No matter how good you make them look, did you make them look fucking rad? Like the rad that they want to be, or the rad that they don't even know they can be yet. And so getting to know these kids was magic. I don't know, I tell you, it was just probably the most incredible experience of my life over the last year and a half or so. And then when we first got here, deciding, and again, this is when I had no business here yet, decided I needed a studio space because I'd always worked at the end of our kitchen counter and all my shit was shoved in a closet and I was obtaining more stuff. And so went and looked at studio space out here, which I had no reason to think I might, afford or have in such a small town, knowing nobody. But went in on it, went in with some partners, ultimately became a collaborative, brought in other artists, built a retail area. And I left all of my accounting and financial and tie-wearing business person bullshit at the door when I got here. And it was because, I decided photography and these things that I'm speaking to were really what was meaningful to me. Like, I could give a shit about the money. I need it to live. My wife likes it when I can help pay the bills. And I like to have a certain quality of life for the kids. But I really I don't like money even. I have a great friend, conservative friend. She's an amazing person. And one time she said, because the conversation kind of went along the lines of, I was thinking about how do I do these charity shoots? Because I'd done a charity shoot over Christmas for some families that didn't have the means to, get family photos done. And I didn't just do the snaps thing. Like, we went out, we spent 45 minutes or whatever it was, but I set all this stuff up and it felt really good. And I wanted to continue to do that, but I knew I wouldn't always have the time, energy, or resources to do that as much as I might want to, or to choose who might be able to take part in that, right? It's a small school out here too, the high school. There's like 60 kids, 50, whatever, in the graduating class. Why is it that 5 can afford me and have all these awesome pictures, and the rest of them are stuck with, just whatever it is? And especially when I was going fucking big on these shoots, these were like huge concept shoots. And so, I kind of felt a little bit bad. Like, how do I equate myself out here amongst the population? And so this friend of mine, this conservative friend of mine, she said, Jeremy, you practice socialized photography. I said, well, I've been called worse. But at any rate, so the studio became Spark Collaborative Studios. And with a couple of partners, and again, a number of retail members who were sort of partnered in with us, that we helped them have a spot to sell their sell their arts and handcrafted items. And that lasted a few years. But as I started getting busier and busier, I was realizing I could no longer give the same amount of time and dedication to all of these shoots, but I still did. And so then my delivery times were carrying on longer. And with ADD, it's very hard to prioritize, to time manage. We like to chase the new and the shiny things. And that's just something I've always struggled with, something I probably always will, although I'm working on coping mechanisms because I got to get through it. But the long story short is that I started dropping the ball. And I went from, king shit, blah, 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 to I'm sorry, I'm working on it, But on the other hand of that coin, where I was apologizing for things, I feel like I was apologizing for process, right? And not product. And by process, I mean delivery dates, right? Things like that were not tied to any outcome as far as like a commercial deadline, product launch, whatever. I just, okay, 3 months. Yes, I'll have your wedding pictures or your senior pictures, right? Things like that. So out here, everything is handshake, which is fucking awesome. Because in the city, you shake someone's hand, it doesn't mean shit. Because you meet somebody at the convenience store. Hey, how you doing? Bob? Yeah, hey, Bob. Yeah, I like, car stereos too. It's a good magazine. You're never going to fucking see Bob again. You're never going to remember his name again. But out here, you shake someone's hand and that means something. And to me, I was like, wow, that's amazing. Because that means that, like, I can actually get to know somebody maybe long enough to where they're gonna see my fuck ups. And like I said, with the whole being vulnerable thing, so that, people trust you, means putting it out there. I put it all out there from the beginning, right? But people didn't really see it yet or know quite all what ADD and mental health and depression, they didn't really know what that looked like, because I was still fucking jiving and going. And they knew, I would drop a light stand, or I would forget my light bag over here, or I'd do things differently, see things differently. But they didn't know about the struggles and how those struggles that I had might potentially affect working with me. And so I feel like as I became more popular, more well-known out here, and more people wanted me, it was, the big rancher families that have been here a long time, families with money, that sort of thing. I feel like my work was a little bit of a status symbol, which, shit, I ain't mad at all, right? But I think along with that, they felt a bit of ownership in over me, and not just the work, but over my faults or flaws, or I was allowed or not allowed to make these certain mistakes, or blah, 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 which I sort of felt was unfair considering what I try to give people out here, which always has been and always will be fucking more than I can even afford to give. Whether it's mentally, emotionally, artistically, time, the gear, all of it, right? Like, I can't think of anyone, I'm sure there's at least a few people, or businesses or something, that for whatever reason, I charged an amount where they maybe didn't need all of what I provided, and hence I charged too much, right? On accident, that kind of thing. But I don't think there's anyone where I've ever given less than what I've expected them to compensate me for, like, ever. And so because of that, when I started getting judged and I started dropping the ball, there was legitimate reasons, though, and they all started kind of piling up. And that was a tough thing. And about the same time, shit went tits up with the studio. I had some backhanded, dirty ass fucking partners that were young and dumb and greedy and thought that, this was all there was to me or those that care about me as far as, intelligence or wherewithal to kick some fucking ass. And they were wrong. So that's currently being litigated. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, here I am on this fucking rainy day at Radar, and I think we'll wrap it up with this, is that today I'm up here trying to find some solace. I've been telling myself I wanted to do these video memoirs, and they'll, like I said, progress into something else at some time. But here's number one off the fucking plate. Happy Mental Health Day. And I'll be sitting up here editing, trying to get some of these clients taken care of one by one without distraction. And we'll see where I progress from here. We'll see some of the changes that I'll be making, both in my business, in my life, in my relationships, in my hobbies, all that sort of shit. So it's on the sleeve. We're keeping it raw, keeping it real. I love you guys. Be good.